What's good? It's Woog. Yes, it looks like they have made Stanionis versus Vergil Ortiz Jr. official. This would be the first title defense of Stanionis' newly earned lesser version of the WBA belt, which he earned against Vergil Ortiz. I looked at that as being a very competitive fight going into Stanionis versus Ortiz, and this Stanionis versus Vergil Ortiz Jr. fight is also kind of seen to be a near 50-50 fight, although I suspect that most of y'all are probably just slightly leaning Vergil Ortiz Jr. just because of how dominant he's looked in most of his fights, and the fact that he is punching so fiercely, whether he's fighting against Mean Machine Kavyaskis or Maurice Hooker, or most recently against Michael McKinson. Vergil Ortiz Jr. is kind of seen to be the next generation that's quickly emerging to kind of snatch the heads off of the current generation. So while Errol Spence Jr. and Terrence Crawford and the sanctioning bodies, the powers that be, figure out what they want to do with that situation, this is about as good as I want to see in the welterweight division. Aside from Jaron Boots Ennis, let's be clear. It doesn't seem like he's, at least at this point, able to get a top tier or near elite dance partner in the ring with him. But aside from Boots Ennis, this is about as good as it gets for all fighters not named Errol Spence Jr. or Terrence Crawford. Granted, an argument could be made for Yordenis Ugas, and an argument could still be made for Keith Thurman, although I don't know what he wants to do career-wise at this point. So yeah, I am ecstatic that Stanionis versus Vergil Ortiz is going to take place. It's going to take place on March 18th, and it looks like it's going to take place in Vergil Ortiz's hometown of Texas, near the Grand Prairie area, more like Dallas-Fort Worth area. So yeah, Mike Coppinger broke the news, and this was pretty much resolved through a purse bid that Golden Boy Promotions, Vergil Ortiz Jr.'s promoter, won. And I think the runner-up in that purse bid was TGB Promotions, who have been Stanionis' promoter. So the split in this one, because Stanionis is the belt holder of that lesser title, it's going to be 75% to 25%, with Stanionis taking that lion's share of the purse, the 75%, which doesn't seem right on the surface given Vergil Ortiz Jr.'s reputation. But, hats off to Vergil Ortiz Jr. for still wanting this opportunity, even if he is kind of biting the bullet financially, so to speak. But when I think about this Stanionis versus Ortiz matchup, I'm just thinking, who's going to win the jab battle here? Because not only are you talking about two elite welterweights, but you're also talking about two fighters who have pretty much demonstrated some of the finest jabs in or around their divisions. I mean, I've seen both of these guys dominate fights behind a jab, and they use the jab, obviously, to set up much more devastating punchers. Like, Stanionis is brilliant at throwing the jab and then going with that same jab hand. They're both orthodox, both right-handed fighters, but Stanionis will throw a power jab. I mean, this thing is a pummeling jab, and he'll put a left hook to the body right behind the jab. And Vergil Ortiz Jr., again, this guy throws absolute lasers. I mean, Vergil Ortiz, out of his 19 wins, because he's 19-0, all 19 wins have come via stoppage. And his best wins to date are probably Mean Machine Kavyaskis, Maurice Hooker, and then probably either Michael McKinson or Samuel Vargas. Although I first started to really take note of Vergil Ortiz Jr. when he absolutely obliterated former pretty good fighter Mauricio Herrera, who I remember I thought had beaten Danny Garcia back in the day. Although Danny Garcia was awarded the controversial decision out in his hometown of Puerto Rico, or at least his country of ancestry, Puerto Rico. But yeah, Mauricio Herrera totally got obliterated by Vergil Ortiz Jr., although it was an aging Mauricio Herrera. Whereas Stanionis' best wins have come against, again, Vergil Ortiz, and then probably Tomas Dulorme, and then I would say Justin Deloach. Now, Stanionis did appear to be on his way to a victory against Luis Collazo, but that fight was stopped and it ruled a no contest due to an accidental clash of heads, which stopped the fight. I mean, Collazo suffered a pretty bad cut, but that fight actually looked like it was shaping up to be more interesting than it appeared it was going to be in the earliest rounds, because Collazo is a savvy veteran, extremely tough to stop, and it looked like he started to mount a little bit of a rally before that clash of heads. So I really wanted to see how that one was going to play out. But yeah, at this point, Stanionis and Vergil Ortiz, both undefeated, and this is just what we need in boxing. Like, at this point, I'm not loving how the months of January and February are shaping up in terms of the matches that are being made. This might be my favorite fight that's currently on the calendar. I mean, I also like Beterbiev versus Anthony Yarde, but I almost look at that one as being Anthony Yarde having a puncher's chance and otherwise probably getting outclassed and stopped by Beterbiev. That's just my gut instinct on that one. Whereas this one, I'm a little bit more, I don't know, because we've seen Vergil Ortiz get hurt. I thought that should have been ruled a knockdown at the hands of Mean Machine Kavaliauskas. And I've seen Vergil Ortiz, I saw him get hit and kind of not buckled, but definitely buzzed against Maurice Hooker and somewhat outboxed in moments against Michael McKinson. Whereas I thought that Stanionis exceeded my expectations against Butayev. I thought that he was probably going to edge a decision, but it looked to my eyes like he won that fight more like 9 rounds to 3, maybe 8 rounds to 4, but it wasn't a 7 rounds to 5 fight in my eyes. So I was a little bit like, damn, Stanionis is demonstratively winning the rounds here against Butayev. And Butayev seemed like he was a little bit less steady and was kind of winging looping shots and was losing at the hands of Stanionis' jab and was just getting broken off to the body as well. I mean, both of these guys do a lot of devastating work to the body. So it's almost a question of who's going to break or wilt between these two. So I'm going to do a proper preview as we near the March fight date. But my earliest gut instincts on this one is kind of telling me that this might be the first fight that Vergil Ortiz Jr. has that goes the 12-round distance. I could see this one being a very kind of nip and tuck, back and forth style fight. I could see, Vergil Ortiz getting popped with that Stanionis jab, and Vergil Ortiz has good head movement, but not great head movement. Like, his head is pretty much there to get hit. I mean, he's a good boxer, and again, he works behind the jab, but his defensive boxing isn't as good as it could be. And he's been devastating enough at this point to still be able to win in spite of a little bit of a lack of head movement. Now, we saw him somewhat pay for it as he was getting hurt multiple times against Mean Machine. But again, his destructive nature was able to kind of allow him to kind of gather himself, seize control of the fight behind the jab, and then start hurting Mean Machine before stopping him, dropping him multiple times, and then stopping him in the 8th round. So Ortiz, we've seen a little bit of vulnerability. Now, I don't know if Stanionis hits as hard as Kavaliauskas, but he definitely carries a lot of pop. Like 9 out of his 14 wins have come via knockout. So he's not a one-punch knockout artist. Stanionis isn't. I would give the punching power edge to Vergil Ortiz Jr., but I'm not sure who's the better boxer between the two. Now, I've been very high on Vergil Ortiz Jr. Don't get me wrong. I look at him as being somewhat the class of the division alongside Jaron Boots Ennis, just behind Spence and Terrence Crawford. Stanionis, I'm a little less sure about. Like, I don't know if once he gets busted up and hurt, if he's going to kind of get exposed to where it turns out maybe he's not elite, but just a tier below that. Still remains to be seen. But to me, this is probably Vergil Ortiz Jr.'s most formidable test to date. Now, again, we don't know this because, again, Mean Machine, very good fighter. I mean, Mean Machine's knocked out David Avanesian, the guy who Terrence Crawford just fought. Mean Machine stopped him as well. And we've seen Mean Machine hurt Terrence Crawford badly. Should have been ruled a knockdown probably, but certainly hurt Terrence Crawford. Again, my early gut tells me Vergil Ortiz Jr. probably via decision, but I just want to, I want to research this one a little more closely. And again, I'm going to do a more analytical video as we near the fight date, but I'm just applauding both fighters and the powers that be for getting this fight done. Props to Golden Boy, props to Vergil Ortiz Jr., props to Stanionis. But yeah, let me know what your earliest thoughts are on Stanionis versus Ortiz Jr. Again, I'm kind of leaning Ortiz Jr., probably via decision in a very hard-fought victory. We're talking, split decision, maybe a 7 rounds to 5, like a 115 to 113 type of scorecard here. I would be pretty surprised if Vergil Ortiz Jr. stops Stanionis. But again, I'm curious to see who wins the jab battle between the two and who starts ripping the other to the body. And if they end up exchanging combinations to the body, who's going to be the fighter that wilts? I'm very curious to see how this one plays out. But yeah, let me know what your earliest thoughts are in the comments, and also in the welterweight division. I'm just hoping, beyond hope, that Errol Spence Jr. versus Terrence Crawford somehow is able to get made. I know it looks like Errol Spence Jr. is probably going to have a fight between March and May. Probably, he's indicating that it's going to be April. Maybe I'm being overly optimistic, but I'm hoping that it's against Terrence Crawford and not against a Keith Thurman or somebody like that. Now, I won't complain too much if it's against Boots Ennis, but still, no. I still want to see the fight that we all need to see in Errol Spence Jr. versus Terrence Crawford, so we can know once and for all whose era this truly is in the welterweight division. But yeah, let me know what your thoughts on Stanionis versus Ortiz Jr. are in the comments. And like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.